Good morning, everyone. Welcome to tea time. It's Tuesday, and I'm out in the meadow with Raz. He's getting a little bit of grazing time. Our snow has finally melted and been replaced with mud most places. As you can see, Raz's gray coat is not very gray anymore. For those of you guys who know me, Raz is a fairly recent addition to my herd. He actually belongs to a friend of mine, and he's just with me for a little while as a horse to help me actually get my riding muscles back in gear. I have a bunch of horses that are on their way to being ridden, but with the way I train very, very, very slowly, and with how much I'm out of the country, that's not happening very fast. I just am not putting enough hours in. So I have Raz here, who's pretty experienced with being a riding horse, and I get to ride Raz for a little bit for the next year or so. So he and I are out in the meadow here having a little bit of grazing time. Hello, you guys. Good group joining for tea time. I thought today I would talk about triggers and glimmers. So this is sort of an interesting thing with horses. We've heard these terms when it comes to people. A trigger is something that makes you react emotionally in a way that is above and beyond what the situation calls for because of a memory. It triggers a memory where you felt that way. And most people know what a trigger is. A glimmer is the opposite of that, where something happens and you feel wonderful, above and beyond what the situation calls for because of a memory that it triggered. And this is something that happens for horses too, I believe. They have memories just like we do. And so as we are interacting with our horses, they are interacting with the current situation that they're experiencing with us, but they're also responding to how they feel, which is as a result of their associations with that situation. So you all know when your horse looks at a horse trailer, they feel one way or another way. And that probably has more to do with their memories of the horse trailer than it has to do with the current situation. This is true for all situations. It just comes up really strongly when it comes to horse trailers or horse floats, for those of you in New Zealand and Australia. So there is this whole rich inner emotional world that horses are navigating, as well as the real world. And obviously people do this too, but I'm here to talk about horses. So when we are interacting with our horses, the thing that I like to remind people is it is their nature to cooperate. They want to be in harmony. They want to work with you. That is their nature. They do not want to go to fight. They do not want to go to flight. They do not want to ignore you. Those are things they do defensively when their senses are overwhelmed. And the thing is, their senses might be overwhelmed from the actual situation, or their senses might be overwhelmed from a memory that was like the current situation. So most of my training is about building good memories so that the future triggers glimmers, not triggers. Leova says, Duncan always smiles when I fix the trailer. He loves it. Good glimmer for him. Yes, that's the idea. So when I train, a lot of people will come to me and say, how do I fix this difficult situation? And I say, well, you can't really fix it in the moment that it's happening. There's too much already going on. There's already an excess of information coming into your horse's nervous system. And when there's too much coming in, it's really hard to add to it in any way that's useful. Now, you could shut their senses down a bit. That might help, and that's what a lot of trainers do. It's not my favorite way to go about it, but if you need to keep them safe, that's absolutely reasonable. What I want to do is I want to train for tomorrow. I want to train for next week. I want to train for next year. I want to train for the future. And what I'm training for is things that will create glimmers in the future. When they see, as Leoba's horse does, when he sees the trailer being fixed up, he's really happy about it because that is a glimmer for him, not a trigger. So all of your training is creating either future glimmers or future triggers. Christian says, I know a horse that will start to shake his head when there's just one snowflake hitting his head. Any idea? Yeah. So that shaking of the head is probably a way that horse copes with being overwhelmed. So if one thing is overwhelming, horses will often distract themselves with a different thing, an action, like shaking their head or pacing or weaving or cribbing, or any of those things that we tend to call vices are just coping mechanisms to distract the horse from other feelings that are overwhelming. Now, in reality, if they're overwhelmed, they need a rest. They're overwhelmed because their nervous system has too much information coming into it. And that's where so much popularity has come up with the art of relaxation and all the different body works that help horses relax so that they can rest. I'm not so into that, but it is a balance. If they're overwhelmed, they need to have some rest for their nervous system before they can take in more information really well. Julie says, great way to put it, Elsa, creating glimmers. I think of it as accumulating time. I believe, let's see if I can read this. I believe time accumulates, not passes, and ask myself, what am I accumulating right now? Oh, I love this, Julie. What am I getting associated with? Yeah. So creating future glimmers is just another way of saying the same thing as what you were saying, Julie. That's great. I love it. Glimmers and triggers is sort of a catchphrase right now. A lot of people are talking about it, and I felt like we could bring it into the horse world as well. Cindy says, thanks to our early training with you, when Merlin came off the BLM, he had many glimmers, and they're still instilled today. Oh, yes. That is one of my favorite things, is when we take these wild horses off the range and we bring them into the human world, can we work on creating glimmers that will continue through the rest of their life? Things they will see that will they'll create a glimmer, an idea that everything is better than even it might be in the real world. The opposite of a trigger, which is where something happens and they just automatically assume everything is worse than it is in the real world. Christian says, nice explanation of the definition, and rest makes so much sense to that horse. Thank you for the cue. Yeah. So I believe that rest and exercise need to be in balance. We get stronger from exercise, but only if we have the appropriate amount of rest to balance it. Exercise comes in physical forms, which all of us are accustomed to, mental forms, which some of us practice, and emotional forms, which are a little bit more unusual. Those are my focus of training. How do we exercise emotionally so that we are emotionally more resilient? And I'm not really talking about humans. I'm talking about horses. But the good news is it applies to both humans and horses. We have very similar systems, very similar structures in terms of our nervous system. There's a couple of differences, but for the most part, we can draw a lot of parallels. So if you're with your horse today and you're interacting with them, I encourage you to think about the future. Think about what are you creating that they're going to remember tomorrow and the next day and the next day and next month and next year and all of those future times. When they look at you, what memories are going to pop up? When they look at the horse trailer, what memories are going to pop up? Annie says, my horse Bambi tends to need so much rest. Am I constantly overwhelming him? So that's one of the reasons that I'm not that into rest, Annie. actually believe that rest needs to be in balance with exercise. And if you have a horse that is always needing so much rest, there's a couple things. One, it could be that they are getting overwhelmed a lot and they're having to recover from it. Or two, they just aren't very strong emotionally. And so if you're not very strong, you get overwhelmed more easily. Now, how do you get stronger? You get stronger by practicing. What happens when you practice? You get tired. So the question is, how are we exercising? So if we're exercising really effectively, we should need less rest unless we've really done something to stretch the edges of the comfort zone, in which case we'll have to rest and recover from that. If we always need a lot of rest, it could be that we need to strengthen the system so it's not overwhelmed so easily. So it could be, Annie, that Bambi is in a pattern where he's exercising enough to get tired, but not enough to get stronger. And that's sort of a wisdom about how you exercise. I can exhaust myself every day without necessarily getting stronger. But if I go about it with a plan and a strategy, which is what I teach, then hopefully the horses start getting stronger and they start really enjoying exercise. And we also have to attach those glimmers to the idea of exercise. So one of the things that can happen is horses will actually start to have glimmers and really good feelings when it comes to the idea of taking a nap or resting, and have triggers and feel really overwhelmed the moment they think about exercising. And so then we need to think a little bit more about how we're setting up that pattern and how they're remembering one versus the other. Because obviously they're going to want to do things that are attached to glimmers. They're not going to want to do things that are attached to triggers. I think there's some comments here. Let me scroll up and see what people are saying. Leoba says, thinking about a glimmer versus a trigger just makes me understand a lot more about my own problems. Yeah, that's the way it goes. We work with horses because it's easier than working with people, I think. And as we start to understand our horses, we often do understand ourselves better as well. That's kind of the nice side effect. Yeah. Let's see. Annie says, yeah, strategy is my weak point. Yep. We need to build some strategies about how to link exercise to better feelings and then get exercise in the right way so the system gets stronger and it's not overwhelmed as often. Yeah. Kristen says, plan, strategy, more understanding, more mental strength. Yep. That's the goal. Yeah, Christian, you are good at strategy. You really like a strategy. I've seen that in your work. Julie says, attach glimmers to the idea of exercise. I love it. You have such a beautiful way with words, as well as the wisdom. Let's see if I can click the see more spot. There's rain on my screen. Oh, there it is. As the wisdom they convey. Thank you, Julie. I really like these ideas. They help me when I go to work with my horses, and if I can share them with all of you a little bit as well, then maybe I can benefit more than just myself. Let's see if I've missed. There we go. That's all the comments. So when you go out today, when you go out to play with your horses, think about building glimmers for the future. I want to add one caveat to this. A lot of people like to build glimmers by using food. And I would say that that's beautiful if you know how to do it. But the downside of using food is a lot of times horses will connect and remember more the trigger of when food got withheld than they will the glimmer of when it got given. And that's the real art of using food to create a glimmer. What part are they remembering? Are they remembering the goodness of when the food was delivered, or the stress and anxiety of when it wasn't delivered? And so I don't use food in my training. I do sometimes have it available in places that we're going. For instance, Raz and I came out here to the meadow to graze. He's pretty happy about that. That is a food reward, without a doubt. But we did it in a way where there was no anxiety before we went there. And there was only the, wow, isn't this great when we got there. So if you are using food to create those glimmers, really pay attention how it's landing for your horse. Every horse is a little different. They all respond a little differently. And if it's not creating the glimmer that you have in mind, change something or get some help. Figure out how to get a strategy so it does actually create the lasting pattern that you had in mind. Christian said food can be seen as a whole training concept, like starting a youngster from foal to riding a horse. Yeah, I agree, Christian. It is a beautiful idea, but it is a whole concept, and you really want to make sure it's landing for the horse and creating the glimmers that you had hoped for. Everything has a strategy attached to it, and we can fumble our way through. Your horse is the only one that gets to judge. Your horse is the one that says, yes, I feel better, or no, I don't feel better. And then you get to figure out how to get more of the good stuff in your relationship and less of the bad stuff. There will always be both. Both things are going to happen. That's life. The question is, what are we putting the emphasis on? What are we remembering best? What's popping up in the future as either a trigger or a glimmer? Julie says, fantastic point. I definitely have seen irritation and frantic energy when I use food rewards with my new Arab friend. Yeah. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't use them, Julie. It just means you need to be a little bit more careful and aware with that horse. What's actually happening? Not every training method or every timing of training is going to be good for every horse. Every horse you have to read, talk to, communicate with, listen to, and figure out what's working for them. So I will leave you guys to think about that. Thanks for joining me for tea time. I'm going to hang out here with Raz in the meadow for a while and enjoy building some glimmers with him. And I will talk to you next week.